Good afternoon, Senators, and welcome to the afternoon session of the 23rd of June, 2025 budget debate. Prior to the lunch break, Senator Michael Bonnet Ellis was ready to give us a budget presentation. I presume that we are now ready to commence. And prior to that, I noticed that we have some afternoon guests in the gallery, and I just wanted to welcome each of them to the upper chamber. And they're all members of the Next Gen mentorship program. And we also have a parent with them. So just let me call their names. And as I call your name, can you please stand? Giuliano Todd, who's 15 years old. Thank you. Isaac Ferguson, who's 17. Thank you, Isaac. Joseph Culmer, who's 17. Quentin Saunders. Remain standing, please. Quentin, remain standing. His mother is here, Miss Wentley Saunders. Mother and son, thank you so much. Brian Fernando Jr. And thank you, and Brian Fernandez Sr. Excellent, excellent. And then we also have Deaconess Vanria Musgrove. Good afternoon. And Sharice Roll, Director of Next Gen. Hey, Sharice. I just want to welcome all of you to the upper chamber and thank you all so much for coming. And I just once again want to congratulate Senator Ronald Duncan for his unselfish and committed passion for uplifting young men of our country. If there was ever such a time that we need such a wonderful program to mentor our young men into men, it's now. And I just want to thank you personally and let you know that I'm proud of you and wishing you all the best as well as your mentorship program. All the best to you. Okay. As many, the chair welcomes Senator the Honorable, the chair. Yes, I welcome Senator the Honorable Michael Bonnet Ellis. But please proceed with your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, through you, I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to our guests in the gallery, both those that visited with us this morning and those that are visiting with us this afternoon. I trust that you will find this debate to be very informative, whilst I cannot guarantee we will be on our best behavior this afternoon. We will try. Madam President, as always, it's a pleasure to rise in this honorable chamber. Before I get into the substance of the speech, Madam President, it's graduation season. And truthfully, it is one of my favorite social media seasons because our timelines are flooded with photos from proud parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and we feel their pride radiating off our phone screens. And so I want to offer a heartfelt congratulations to the graduating class of 2025 at every level. Our bright young minds leaving primary school, our determined high school graduates preparing for the next chapter, and our university graduates stepping confidently in the world of work and leadership. Each milestone represents not only an academic achievement, but a dedication, resilience, and the support of families, teachers, and communities who have walked the journey alongside them. Whether they're just beginning to discover who they are, or preparing for national service, or ready to contribute their skills to our country's development, they remind us that the future of the Bahamas is in good hands. And we salute their accomplishments and stand with them as they embrace the promise of what comes next. Madam President, I've spent the last 4 days on the pool deck at the Betty Kelly Kenning complex. The days were hot and the nights were long. But I want to send a heartfelt congratulations to all of the swimmers, coaches, officials, volunteers, and parents on the successful occasion of the 53rd National Swimming Championships. This grueling 4-day competition is the final exam of the swim season. It's demanding not just physical endurance, but a focus, resilience, and heart. I'm a proud swim parent myself, and I was especially moved watching my daughter Camelia rise to the challenge alongside so many talented young athletes. Every swimmer who competed, every coach who mentored, every official that sat in the sun like me who kept the standard, every volunteer who kept the event running smoothly, and every parent who gave their time, energy, and gas. You make this annual championship a true showcase of Bahamian dedication and excellence. Next month, we celebrate all things Bahamian. And as we march towards the 52nd celebration of our independence, I encourage everyone to pause and consider how far we've come as a people. This is a time to reflect on the journey, the sacrifices, the triumphs, and the unshakable belief that we could shape our own destiny. But it's more than just a moment of reflection. This anniversary is a reminder of our responsibility to the future. Our strength as a nation not only lies in our sovereignty, but in how we care for one another, how we lead, how we prepare the way for those coming behind us. Being strong is not about being a bully and pushing to have your own way. It is also about having confidence, compassion, and a desire to support the next generation of leadership. We've seen what happens when leadership is driven by ego and intimidation. Community suffers, progress stalls, and trust is eroded. But real leadership is grounded in service. And it's knowing when to speak up, when to listen, when to lead from the front, and when to empower others to take the reins. As we look forward to the future, we need leaders who are bold yet humble, who understand that lifting up others is not a threat, it's a legacy. And to borrow some words I learned earlier, and now I turn to the budget. As we rise to debate this year's national budget, we must do so with a clear-eyed view of the moment we are in and the future we are shaping. You know, growing up, the word lie was considered a bad word in my household. We weren't allowed to say it. We had to get creative. Stories. We would say somebody was telling stories. Fibs. But Madam President, as a lawyer, I think I can use the professional term misrepresentation. And I want to say that this administration is full of it. It is misrepresentation when the government talks of a budget surplus while deliberately ignoring critical expenditure that our people need just to keep the numbers looking tidy on paper. You don't get to claim fiscal discipline when clinics are crumbling, bills are unpaid, and schools are under-resourced. That's not responsible budgeting. That's creative accounting. That's manipulation dressed up as management. But unfortunately, this government has made misrepresentation a habit. Whether it's the promises they've broken, the projects that remain stalled, or the facts that they twist to suit a narrative. But the numbers don't lie, and neither do the experiences of the Bahamian people. It's time we start calling things what they are, holding this administration accountable for the stories they tell, and offering a new vision grounded not in illusion, but in integrity and action. This moment that we find ourselves in today calls for leadership that is honest about the challenges we face and bold enough to address them. Madam President, this budget in its numbers and in its spin demonstrates that there's a disconnect between what is claimed and what is felt. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. We are told that the economy is booming, but Bahamian people are not feeling it. The lived experience of everyday Bahamians does not reflect the narrative being spun in this budget. While the government touts progress and balance, Bahamians are still struggling to make ends meet. I've asked persons about what issues keep them up at night, and the resounding answer was the cost of living. Just this week at the food store, I overheard the cashiers talking about looking for a second job because she was living month to month and did not want to live like that. Madam President, expenses are increasing, but businesses aren't growing and salaries aren't increasing in any meaningful way. How is it that this administration can brag about increased revenue and positive economic outlooks, but on the ground, we're just not feeling the boom? The truth is simple. This budget, it isn't a budget for us. It's for their friends, their family, and those who are politically connected. We are told to believe in a projected surplus, yet up and down these islands and keys, bills go unpaid. At the mid-year budget, there was $122 million in unpaid invoices. That's not fiscal discipline. That's financial fiction. Even at the beginning of this budget exercise, they claimed to be the first to install free Wi-Fi in public parks. Nope, the F&M did that in 2017. And Senator Roll Turner was telling me the truth is easy. I just wish they would find it. Again and again, we see a reluctance to speak plainly, to tell the truth, to respect the intelligence of Bahamian people. Credibility continues to elude this government. We're still waiting for information on the $10 million loan to the Carmichael Project Development Limited. But let's look at the gaps between promises and delivery. Anti-gang legislation was passed, but how many individuals have actually been charged under it? The Protection Against Violence Act was passed in 2023, but the commission at the heart of the act has yet to be appointed. And on the issue of transparency, perhaps the area where this administration has failed most spectacularly, we are told that the Ombudsman law is a priority, but it hasn't been brought into force yet, and I couldn't even find the budgetary allocation for it. There has been little to no progress on the Freedom of Information Act, despite promises to do so, and not a peep about campaign finance reform or electoral reform or a new Public Disclosure Act that they promised to implement in their now notorious brochure known as the Blueprint. Oversight institutions remain underfunded and underpowered. The Independent Commission of Investigations Act and the Protected Disclosures Act were passed with great fanfare, but neither has been brought into force. Meanwhile, the travel fund, slush with cash. Another misrepresentation, a misrepresentation of priorities. The Office of the Auditor General still lacks the resources to properly scrutinize public contracts. Is it then any surprise that so many contracts continue to be awarded without competition? Madam President, the PLP's own blueprint for change, particularly on page 23, promised open and transparent government procurement, but that promise, like so many others, has not been kept. This isn't oversight, it's a pattern. It's a deliberate strategy to avoid scrutiny while delivering just enough PR to spin and dominate the headlines. The same applies to the government's promise to make doing business easier, but that's not what's happening. Small businesses are now dealing with more red tape, stricter rules, and an aggressive push to collect revenue. The same policies they claimed would create opportunity are actually making it harder for people to grow and succeed. Madam President, in my view, the increase in government revenue is not a result of economic growth. We know that our economic growth is not as rosy as the government has misrepresented. The World Bank's projections show that the Bahamas has the worst growth outlook for the Caribbean for 2025, just 1.1%, far behind our regional peers like St. Vincent at 4.9%, Grenada at 3.8%, and Barbados at 2.8%. If we actually want to have a real surplus driven by a booming economy, we must be serious about building a resilient and inclusive economy for all of us, not just for the few. We must begin by supporting and encouraging Bahamian businesses. That means creating real opportunities for ownership, improving access to financing, cutting red tape, making space for local entrepreneurs to grow and thrive within our largest economic driver, tourism. Because while we've seen the record number of tourists landing on our shores, that influx has not been translated into the kind of economic growth that we would have expected. Too few Bahamians are positioned to benefit meaningfully. If we want tourism to work for the people, we must ensure that Bahamian businesses are not stifled by red tape and left on the sidelines, but are placed in the center of the economy. It's a Bahamian problem, and it requires a Bahamian solution, but this government has yet to present one. In their blueprint, they promised to amend legislation to incentivize Bahamian-owned and joint venture boutique hotels, but that amendment hasn't come yet. But we can see an act about incentivizing businesses with turnover of over 50 million. I wonder how many Bahamian entrepreneurs can benefit from that. Madam President, I've said in this place before, we need a tourism product that offers unique activities to visitors. No conversation about tourism can be complete without discussing downtown Nassau. We started to get somewhere with the revitalization of downtown, but that has stalled. Garbage remains piled up, attracting dogs, rodents, and persons scavenging for food. And where are the sidewalk cafes? Where are the stores selling Bahamian products? And not just behind the port gates, but on Bay Street proper. And now that some of those abandoned buildings have been demolished, what is the plan for those empty spaces? And what about the other buildings that are safety hazards? And then there's the eastern end of Bay Street. Waterfront property with picturesque views that is hidden by too many abandoned buildings. What is the plan for that? How do we incentivize owners so that we can develop our tourism product? That is something that we should be able to agree on. Revitalizing the eastern end of Bay Street isn't just about cleaning up abandoned buildings. It's about unlocking the full potential of our tourism product. If we are serious about growing this sector, we need a clear plan and real incentives to get property owners on board and bring that area back to life. Madam President, if there is one sector that most acutely reflects the cost of inaction, it is healthcare. This government has not only failed to resolve our healthcare crisis, it has excavated it. There are too few doctors, not enough nurses, not enough technicians. Operating theaters lie idle. Accident and emergency is overrun. Patients face long waits for care, and the ambulance service is in disarray. Madam President, we were told the critical care block would transform healthcare in the Bahamas. Yet a decade later, what we see is a facility crumbling from neglect and a healthcare system buckling under the weight of broken promises. What was meant to represent a leap forward in public health now stands as a stark reminder of what happens when maintenance, planning, and leadership fall by the waysides. Walk through the corridors of PMH. You will find patients lining the halls, some on stretchers, others on benches, enduring long waits in an overcrowded, understaffed conditions. And that is the daily reality for far too many Bahamians, and it is unacceptable. Essential vendors have not been paid. Medical supplies, including medicine and antibiotics, are not in stock and won't be in stock until they pay those vendors. The long-promised upgrade to the emergency department remains unfinished. Despite announcement after announcement from the minister, completion dates keep shifting. When timelines slip, lives are placed at risk. On Grand Bahama, the Rand Memorial Hospital tells a similarly grim story, perhaps even a grimmer story if that's a word. Essential equipment remains inoperable. The PHA in its own assessment has advised, and I quote, "The volume and complexity of ongoing issues have become significantly overwhelming, posing risks to the safe and efficient delivery of social services. In plain English, it's so bad, it's too risky to operate." They are only operating in emergency mode. In other words, emergency cases. Sterilization machines have yet to be repaired. Medical waste is left unattended. Anesthesia machine isn't working. The anesthesia machine isn't working. Madam President, two of my favorite colleagues opposite like to say, things are good in Grand Bahama. But Madam President, he didn't talk about health care because that isn't looking so good. I have cousins, aunts, and uncles in Grand Bahama, and you're telling me it's too risky to operate, but they will operate in unsafe circumstances in the case of to save a life? That's mind-boggling. And an entire wing of the hospital never used is undergoing expensive remediation despite having already cost Bahamian people millions. It was sold to the public as a state-of-art facility, but delivered a costly disappointment. Across both hospitals, the conditions are not only a disservice, they are a disgrace. We hear talk of new medical facilities, but what's being constructed in Freeport doesn't meet the standards or scope of a proper hospital. In Nassau, discussions of future bills exclude critical and oversubscribed services like trauma care and management of non-communicable diseases. It raises a serious question. Who are these facilities being built for? And what are the problems they are meant to solve? And who is going to staff them? What is clear is that this administration's priorities are deeply misplaced. While the healthcare infrastructure deteriorates, public funds continue to be spent on vehicles, foreign travel, and cosmetic initiatives, while emergency responders are stretched thin, paying out of pocket for repairs to vehicles, and sometimes operating with just 1 or 2 ambulances across islands. We've heard lofty promises about foreign medical teams and outside partnerships, but a long-term solution cannot lie in outsourcing. Where is the plan to develop Bahamian talent, to invest in our own nurses, doctors, and healthcare professionals? We must build local capacity, not just borrow it. The time for excuses is over. The Free National Movement has a different vision. Every Bahamian deserves access to high-quality care. That begins with proper funding, regular maintenance, and respect for the professionals on the front lines. We are committed to building a healthcare system that puts people first, where no Bahamian is denied emergency care because they cannot pay, where nurses and doctors and technicians are valued and supported, and where essential upgrades to clinics and hospitals are delivered without delay. We will expand NHI to cover catastrophic care, establish a national blood bank, and build a proper morgue and coroner's facility. Most importantly, though, we will work to close the gap between public and private health care, because quality care should never depend on your income. Healthcare is more than a budget line. It is a human right. Let's now turn to the issue of taxation. This is not the new day that was promised by the same old PLP. The administration set aside $28.5 million for social assistance last budget, but they are on track to spend only $21 million. $10 million less than last year, despite the growing need. How does one trend under budget on social assistance when families are crying out for help? The number of persons seeking temporary shelter continues to increase, and they've had to turn people away. Why? Where did you spend the $10 million that was left in your budget? There is an increase in men seeking assistance, unemployed persons seeking assistance. The Minister of Social Services' own presentation confirmed that there is a disconnect, but then there was money to open up a new office. It doesn't feel like money is flowing in this country, but government revenue is up. So maybe the money is only flowing towards the government. So again, I ask, who is this budget really for? It is for the few and not for you. It is for the privileged few who already have access, who already benefit, who now benefit even more while the rest of the country is asked to tighten their belts. There was never a new day. There was only a new spin in a different color shirt. And my unsolicited advice is, don't ditch the yellow. It's who you are. And who are they, Madam President? In the case the public forgot, this is the administration that raided the National Disability Commission's budget for a memorial service. And they took funds allocated to beautify Grand Bahama to travel to Avoco. For them, allocating funds does not necessarily mean they will use them for that purpose. At the mid-year budget, how much money was reallocated and used for travel? Over $3 million. This budget, much like this PLP administration, reflects detachment, misdirection, and misplaced priorities, misrepresentation. What Bahamian people need and what they deserve is a government that delivers security, ownership, accountability, and resilience. That is what the Free National Movement is committed to building, and that is the standard we hold ourselves to. As I close, Madam President, over the last 2 weeks, my family and I have been the subject of voice notes and online posts crafted to insult, demean, and cause embarrassment. There are those who would dismiss this behavior as something that comes with the territory and public life, but I reject that notion. If we are serious about encouraging more citizens, particularly women, to enter frontline politics and serve their country, we cannot then normalize personal attacks and cyberbullying as part of the process. Public service is about commitment and not character assassination. It is about offering solutions and not enduring slander. We must draw a firm line. We cannot condone this behavior. We must condemn it for the health of our democracy and for the sake of those who will come after us. Madam President, I want to thank everyone who has offered advice, solicited and unsolicited, to assist with this budget presentation. Everyone who has offered words of encouragement, and especially those who keep me covered in prayer. I am raised, rooted, and ready to take on the next leg of this political mission to deliver the Bahamas out of the hands of this detached, disconnected, and deluded PLP administration. As always, Madam President, may God continue to bless you, and may He help us to reimagine a Bahamas where we all can thrive.
Thank you, Senator Michael Bonnet Ellis, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator Honorable Barry Griffin.
Do you all know that Rihanna song that starts, how about a round of applause? Standing ovation. You put on quite a show. You really had me going. I think we need to give Senator Bonnet Ellis another round of applause for what I can only imagine is a reading from Politrix, a little-known Bahamian literary piece. But as Senator said, let's get back to reality.
Don't worry, we bought all of them. We bought everyone in print.
We need to reread that to see what chapter and verse that part came from. Madam President, before I begin my formal contribution, please allow me to offer a few acknowledgements. First, I want to formally recognize and thank the PLP Women's Branch executives for their presence here this morning. They were led by Calverna Small, the newly elected chairwoman. I just want to offer my congratulations to the entire team on their election. I also wish to acknowledge the staff of the Ministry of Economic Affairs who were also here this morning, and they were led by the Permanent Secretary, Pernell Kingroll, Director of Financial Services, Brandis Duncanson, and Director of the Orange Economy, Angelique McKay. I also want to acknowledge the trade unit at the Ministry of Economic Affairs, led by Brakel Pinder and her deputy, Tia Hanna. They were unable to be here today. But I speak on all persons at the Ministry of Economic Affairs when I say their dedication, their quiet diligence, and their belief in the Bahamas' economic future often go unseen. But they are among the people helping to drive the policies that will shape this country's next chapter. and I thank them for their service. I also want to thank the students and staff and supporters of the Next Gen community organization led by Senator Ronald Duncan for their presence here today. As Senator Ellis said before her contribution, she's not sure if we could be on our best behavior. I think that was a foreshadowing of her contribution, but we'll try to set a good example for you here today. Madam President, to my esteemed colleagues and to the resilient people of the Bahamas, it is an honor to rise in this chamber today, debating a compendium of bills, orders, and policies that reflect the promise of our people and the power of our potential. I begin by acknowledging all those who had a hand in the preparation of the fiscal budget for this year. Every chairman of every board, every director, senior government official, cabinet minister who contributed to the overall vision of each government agency, board, body, department, and ministry, and to the Prime Minister and to our Minister of Economic Affairs and senior officials in the Ministry of Finance who turned the words and promises in our blueprint for change into allocations that bring them to life. The outcome is a bold and compassionate roadmap for the year ahead. These are not easy times, but as a country, we are not without direction. And more importantly, we are not without hope. Today, I wish to speak to you not only of challenges, but of possibilities. Not only of numbers, but of narratives. Not only of where we are, but where we could be. And I do so with a clear focus on trade as a lever of opportunity, a creator of wealth, and a catalyst for a truly global Bahamas. So let us begin with an honest look at our present reality. In 2022, our economy grew by 10.78%, a post-pandemic rebound that reminded us of our resilience and that the IMF called remarkable. The International Monetary Fund, the global financial watchdog that overlooks every economy in the world, called the rebound of the Bahamas a speck on the map. Remarkable. That is something we should all be proud of. Whether you are PLP, F&M, unaffiliated, the fact that our government was able to deftly use economic policies and other levers not just to successfully, but to robustly lift us out of post-Dorian, post-COVID slump, we should all be proud.
His recent bond offering was just 400% oversubscribed. 400% oversubscribed.
We should all be proud. In 2023, growth cooled to 2.64%, a number that was still above the international comparative average. It increased slightly in 2024 at 3.4%, and as Senator Ellis said, growth is projected at 1.8% for 2025. Madam President, in each of the years since 2021, outside of Guyana that discovered oil, the Bahamas had the strongest average economic growth in the entire Caribbean. That's progress. That's success. And for the average Bahamian, that is welcome news. But Madam President, what the numbers also tell us is that it's time to supercharge. You know when you're driving up a hill and you're moving steadily, but you hit that point of equilibrium where you need to put your foot on the gas in order to accelerate? Well, Madam President, that is where we are with this budget. We are putting our foot on the gas. The reality is that we cannot rely on the same old engines to keep our economy moving forward and upward. While oiling the old engines, we must begin installing new ones. Make no mistake, Madam President, we have done a yeoman's job in oiling the engines we were dealt. Our debt to GDP ratio has fallen from 81.6% in 2023 to a projected 68.9% by the end of this year. Inflation, which peaked at 3.1%, is expected to settle below 1%. Unemployment is on a downward path from 10.1% in 2022 to 8.7% mid last year, with a further decrease expected this year. These are signals of fiscal discipline and macroeconomic healing. There is no doubt that we, this government, have been the steady hands prudently guiding us into economic success. But, Madam President, beneath these encouraging signs lies a deeper imbalance, one that we cannot afford to ignore, and one that this budget shows we will not ignore. Last year, the Bahamas imported $4.9 billion worth of goods, while exporting just $700 million. That's a trade ratio of almost 7 to 1, a national vulnerability hiding in plain sight. It's no secret that we import nearly everything from a single jurisdiction. Food, fuel, building materials, clothing, we import nearly everything. And we pay the price for it in the form of higher costs for our people and lost opportunities for our economy. While the opposition may want you to believe that things like higher inflation was a uniquely Bahamian problem, Madam President, over the last 4 years, inflation increased globally, which means the cost we pay for goods increase. They had the products, we needed the products, so we paid the higher costs. That, Madam President, in and of itself, is a silent tax on the future we are trying to build. Now just imagine if we could diversify where we got goods from in order to take advantages of cost differences globally, currency fluctuations, economies of scale, and competitive advantage of certain jurisdictions in certain industries. Now imagine that through those types of initiatives, we were able to save on the cost of goods we purchase, and we invest even just half of those savings into Bahamian farmers, Bahamian manufacturers, Bahamian exporters. Now stop imagining, because that is what this administration is doing right now. Madam President, if through this investment in our people, we can create just 1,000 new local millionaires, each hiring 5 people, each helping 5 families, each shifting the weight of this country forward, imagine what type of country we would have. This is not economic theory. This is national urgency. This is within our power to fix, and this is what we are doing. Madam President, let me be clear. Trade is not just about customs codes or cargo ships. Trade is about freedom. The freedom for a young entrepreneur in Andros to sell pepper sauce to a client in the UK. The freedom for a woman in Grand Bahama to turn handmade goods into cross-border income. The freedom for our nation to shape its own destiny, not to be dictated by supply chains or external shocks. Trade can reduce the cost of living. Trade can unlock jobs and industries. Trade can empower our young people, uplift our women, and build wealth that stays right here on Bahamian soil. But only if we are bold enough to rethink the game and smart enough to rewrite the rules. Madam President, we are bold and we are smart. So today, in this budget, we are rethinking the game. In this budget is increased funding to support the National Trade Diversification Strategy, a decisive step forward in transforming how the Bahamas earns, trades, and competes in the world. This strategy is not just a policy, it's a national pivot. It's a bold commitment to our international relationships to lower costs of living for all Bahamians through better and more competitive import trade. It is also a commitment to expand our economic base beyond the traditional pillars of tourism and financial services. Through this strategy, we are identifying new export sectors, forging new trade alliances, and equipping Bahamian entrepreneurs to enter global markets. Whether it's agro-processing, digital services, specialty manufacturing, or creative industries, this program is about building an economy that is not only more resilient, but more inclusive, more innovative, more competitive, and unmistakably Bahamian. It is about creating new streams of income, new job pathways, and new sources of national pride. Colleagues, if we are to truly transform the Bahamas, we must not only look inward, we must look outward. We must see ourselves not as a small island state surviving at the periphery of global commerce, but as a bold Caribbean nation capable of punching above its weight in the world. This is the essence of a personal vision I have for this country and our people and what I call the global Bahamas. The global Bahamas is a Bahamas that is globally connected to new markets in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Digitally enabled, exporting not only goods, but services, ideas, and Bahamian culture. A global Bahamas is economically competitive, with Freeport and Nassau as logistics powerhouses and Bahamian businesses as regional champions. When I speak of a global Bahamas, I'm not simply talking about trade agreements and shipping routes. I'm talking about our people. I envision a Bahamas where our young creators in Eleuthera can sell their music to global platforms, where a rum maker in Andres exports specialty rum to Europe, and where a woman in Grand Bahama runs a digital consultancy with clients in Africa and Asia. A global Bahamas means that Bahamian talent is no longer limited by geography, and that opportunities are not confined to just Nassau or Freeport. They are boundless as the world itself. It means our entrepreneurs can scale, our students can compete, and our families can thrive with income streams that reach far beyond our borders. It is about creating new ladders of prosperity so that more Bahamians can live well, build wealth, and pass something greater to the next generation. That is the Bahamas I believe in. That is the future I am working to build. Minister Halkitis, in his address, spoke a little to the passion and drive I bring to this role and the work I am doing. I thank him for his acknowledgement, and as always, thank him for his support as the minister with responsibility for trade. But Madam President, the work I do in trade is not just professional, it is deeply personal. I am not removed from the reality of the young Bahamian professional or entrepreneur trying to carve out a future in a world that's rapidly changing. I am that demographic. I know what it means to dream big, to work hard, and to want more, not just for yourself, but for your country. I carry those conversations with me, the ones I have every day with young creatives, business owners, college students, and dreamers and thinkers who love this country and want to make it on the world stage. And so this mission that I'm on, to open doors globally, to build wealth locally, to make trade accessible and empowering, this isn't just policy to me. This is personal. This is about creating the kind of Bahamas where our brightest minds no longer have to leave to succeed, because the opportunities they need are being built right here by people who understand them, believe in them, and fight for them. Madam President, with the support of our Prime Minister and the Minister of Economic Affairs, I am laying this foundation brick by brick. We are building trade bridges to Ghana and Nigeria, exploring partnerships across Brazil, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. We are opening the door to the African Continental Free Trade Area, unlocking the benefits of our economic partnership agreements with Europe and the United Kingdom. Madam President, in my capacity as chairman of the Trade Commission, I report today not just on a vision, but on execution. Under my leadership, we have restructured and mobilized the Commission around 12 active committees, each charged with delivering results over the next fiscal year. We are also focusing on institutionalizing the work we are doing so that the Bahamian private sector, the international community, and the public at large all have a clear view and understanding of the work we are doing and how to access it. This budget supports all of that. This year, this budget will provide support that will allow us to finalize and publish a national trade diversification policy paper, a first ever national logistics strategy, and a first ever national export strategy. These are not abstract documents. They are operational roadmaps for ministries, entrepreneurs, and investors alike. It makes clear the Bahamas' vision, strategy, and work in each of these areas. It is a guide for Bahamian entrepreneurs and international investors on where we are going as a country and where we think the opportunities lie. This budget will also support our work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in crafting an instructive document for our trade, economic, and commercial attaches in our missions abroad, and training them on how to advance our trade and business interests abroad. This budget would also support our work in advancing various international agreements, such as trade-related MOUs and technical cooperation agreements with countries, international bodies, and international private sector actors, all with the view of building out the Bahamas' trade ecosystem. Madam President, please allow me to give you a brief overview of our trade committees and the work this budget will support. First, I would like to say that all of our committees have been opened up to relevant and key stakeholders. So our committees have representatives from the Chamber of Commerce, the creative community, shipping and logistics stakeholders, small business representative, legal, marketing, and compliance professionals, and much more. Our National Trade Diversification Committee, that focus is on the cost of living and finding alternative sources for the most important products and services to the majority of Bahamians. This largely includes food and building supplies, two areas that Bahamians have told us the prices must be brought down on. On this front, we will continue our international engagement and continue our town halls that bring together local businesses with shipping and logistics companies and the international partners we have identified. Our Export Readiness Committee will produce an export readiness toolkit that any Bahamian business person would be able to download digitally, which will have tips on international best practices and steps they can take to make their local business export ready. Simple things from building a digital presence to more complex advice on packaging and label requirements of different countries. We will also commit to conducting a training program that will train and guide at least 50 Bahamian MSMEs in exporting internationally. Our Competition and Price Transparency Committee. This committee works closely with the Attorney General's Office and the Law Reform and Revision Committee to support the passage of a competition bill that will have the Bahamas make good on our international commitment to promote competition and police unfair business practices. This budget will also allow us to launch a national price comparison app to empower consumers to make the best possible spending decisions. We also have various geographic and jurisdictional committees that each have a mandate to push engagement in various regions, such as Africa, Latin America, and Asia. These committees have also been tasked with concretizing agreements that Bahamians can rely on. These committees will bring to life the inbound trade missions from Canada, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Colombia that have already happened, and expand to bring more people here to the Bahamas to do business. We also have a Shipping and Logistics Committee. This committee will continue to be at the forefront of promoting Nassau and Freeport as transshipment hubs, but it will also go a step further. This group will marshal the Bahamas' first ever national logistics strategy that will include a real plan for investment in ports across the country, as well as how to expand our airports for use as international air cargo. This group will also take the lead in working closely with CARICOM so that we are aligned with our Caribbean neighbors. Madam President, this is not theory. This is work that is currently underway. This is progress being made in real time. The strategic agenda of the Bahamas Trade Commission is ushering a new economic era for the Bahamas. We have done a great job in oiling the old engines of our economy. Now we are installing brand new engines. Madam President, since 2021, the Bahamas has staged one of the strongest economic recoveries in the region. We have restored growth, reduced unemployment, and tamed inflation. We have brought our debt and deficit under control while still investing in our people. Our economy continues to grow steadily and surely. The tourist arrivals are breaking records, putting billions back into the hands of Bahamian workers and businesses. This is not luck. This is leadership. This is the result of sound fiscal management, bold policy making, and a government that stayed focused when it mattered most. And now, with trade reform, export growth, and global engagement, we are poised not only to recover, but to rise. To not just survive the storms, but to chart the course forward. The world is changing, and under this administration, the Bahamas is changing with it. To my fellow Bahamians, this is my charge to you. Buy into our vision. Let us not settle for slow, incremental change. Let us be bold. Let us be the generation that cuts the import bill, grows local industries, and digitizes our economy, and puts Bahamian exports on the world map. To my colleagues here today, let us commit right here in this chamber to making the Bahamas not only better, but globally relevant, economically resilient, and unapologetically ambitious. Madam President, we can't continue to tell our young people, such as the young people in this gallery, to dream big while giving them an economy that keeps them small. We must give you the tools, the training, the trade access, and above all, the belief that you belong in the global marketplace. Because trade is not just about goods, it is about greatness, and that greatness is already within us. The global Bahamas isn't a dream, it is our shared duty. So to every Bahamian listening, especially our young people, whether you're a student with a dream, a small business owner with a vision, or a worker just trying to make ends meet, I say this: we are building a new economy, and there is a place in it for you. Young people, this is your time. This is your moment. The Global Bahamas is not a government program. It is a national movement, and I am asking you to join it. Bring your ideas, your talents, your grit, and your hope. Help us to create a Bahamas where we don't just look out at the world, we compete in it. Help us to build an economy where no one is left behind and no dream is too big to pursue right here at home. The work has begun. The door is open. This, my friends, this is the new day we have all been waiting for. And so to you, I ask you, join this big, bold movement that the PLP is ushering. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator the Honorable Barry Griffin. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncan.
Sure, my age. Yes. Thank you, Madam President. Yeah. Senator Griffin, thank you very much. As always, I knew you'd be doing a very impressive, passionate contribution. I saw it fitting to bring the future leaders to understand that there's someone working for them in the time, the years to come. So thank you very much for your work, sir. Madam President, thank you. It's an honor once again to rise in this upper chamber as a servant of the people. I want to give thanks for having the privilege of contributing to this pivotal budget debate 2025-2026 for this fiscal year. And I thank the Lord in all that I do. I thank my wife, definitely my kids for their time. They've allowed me to perform in this task. And quite frankly, the Bahamian people for allowing me to serve in this capacity. But Madam President, before I begin my contribution, I would like to just share some notable events that we've encountered over the last month. With Monday, past June 9th, I had the privilege of attending the annual Kalani Lakes Community Social. I was accompanied by several mentees of the Next Gen Mentorship Program. And I want to say how it was such an amazing opportunity, simply because community engagement is very important. You know, it's not only about national building or nation building, but as a partner, every year this event is held, and I was proud to serve some of the residents You know, the food was amazing. I had a chance to engage. But most importantly, this was the first opportunity that the young men had out of the classroom setting to go out there in the community and speak and engage and understand what it is they want to do as young men, speak to other community leaders within the Bahamas and other men with families. And the feedback was quite positive and outstanding that these young men truly have grown so much in the last few weeks we've been together. They understand their purpose. They understand that it's okay to dream big. They understand that not only their parent or parents or family wants them to be better, but there's a community, there is different organizations, but the biggest thing that they understand that you must be a man with a compassion, a man who understands about putting something back into the bank that you're debiting at this time, and to understand that the power of networking is extremely important. So I would like to thank the president of the Kalani Lakes Association, Mr. Ricardo Moss, and his team for doing a stellar job this year. I want to extend a heartfelt appreciation to the warmth and community-driven residents of Kalani Lakes for opening their heart and their event to us. It almost want to look like a next-gen fair. How much people we had there that evening. Also, Madam President, on the 16th of June, I had the opportunity to attend the Gambier Primary School prize-giving ceremony. And this was a joyous and meaningful event in the Kalani constituency. I want to proudly congratulate Mr. Strawn, the principal of that establishment, the administrators, the teachers, the parents, the entire grade 6. Boy, they grew up so fast. I remember seeing them a few years ago, and now they feel like they are ready to tell us what to do. The leadership of that organization, kudos to you for your efforts. But most importantly, Madam President, you know, as our Prime Minister, Philip Brave Davis, continues to demonstrate his relentlessness with the commitment of availability and affordability of good quality foods, and nutrition is a big thing in our country. During the ceremony, I was able to give each graduating sixth grader, all 22 of them, $100 each to go towards their nutrition during the summer program. And I want to just say thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, SG. The parents, truly, thank you for partnering with them. And the message was simply put. The message says, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for caring for our little darlings. So, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for that. And then, Madam President, June 17th, we had a very, very busy month in June. We were able, in collaboration with MSC Cruises, we were able to go to and meet the captain of the MSC Seascape, where there was a private meeting with the captain, an exclusive tour of the vessel, and quite frankly, these young men have a very active metabolism. So wherever we go, food must be present, all right? Without a doubt. So I must say to you that they sampled the brunch, and the report was the food was outstanding. So, Madam President, these experiences was just more than just going and meeting people. They opened doors for opportunities. We were able to introduce these young men to careers in maritime, hospitality, logistics, and international trade. So this is proof that when private industry and community program join forces, we can unlock the future for the next generation. So I want to, at this time, thank Mr. Rick Sasso, who is the chairman of North America MSC Cruise Limited. You know, I recall good senator talking about spending for traveling, and if, yeah, you said it, and if there wasn't seed money to invest in us to travel, I met Rick Sasso at Seatrade this year. And when I met him, chairman of the whole MSC, and I said, you know, we have some outstanding men in the Bahamas who are looking for opportunities in future. And he says, here's my card. call me if you really want them to be exposed of what's happening. So you just can't give me a card because I can definitely call you. I tell you how I operate. So I called them. I said, "Hi, this is Senator Duncan, Next Gen. You said I can call you and have them have an experience." He says, "All right, when you want to come." We called, we directly dealt with me, and it happened. So I'm saying to you, there is value. Yes, please. Rick Sasso, thank you very much. There is opportunity in investing in travel. Everything you cannot get staying at home. You have to go and travel and network. And because of that, we now have every entry with his commitment to come and visit a cruise ship when they're in port, courtesy of Rick Sasso. So thank you very much, Rick Sasso. Next, Madam President, we went and visited on June 20th, the Deputy Commissioner, Anthony Roll, who is a member of the executive branch of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And I want to say, meeting Deputy Commissioner for me was one that I really enjoyed because I saw and heard his testament and his story about how he had his own programs working in Baines and Grantstown, talked about being a cop on the motorcycle and then getting into the administrative arm of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And he took the time to speak with these young leaders of Next Gen. And my takeaway was simply letting these young men know that leadership begins from where you're at. You don't have to wait until that you are an adult in leadership. And he talked about how his journey helped him to be the man that he is today, because he never wanted to be a police officer. People see men in certain positions and think that they always from day one wanted to be in that particular field. He wanted to be an engineer. Took his friend to sign up to be a police officer, and he was from Andros, and someone from Andros saw him and told him to fill out the application. He filled it out begrudgingly, and the force called him, didn't call his friend. And he went on to say that in our era, you couldn't tell your parents what you don't want to do. Parents said, you go be police, you wouldn't be police. So at least within the year and a half, so he was just there begrudgingly, but then it all clicked in, and he loved where he was, and look how far he has come. Deputy Commissioner of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. But the biggest takeaway that I walked away was his two squad mates is the other Deputy Commissioner of Police, and the senior squad mate is the current Commissioner of Police. So the message I told these young Next Gen men is that while you may be colleagues today, you never know what's in store for you in the future. So always look at building relationships, because the enemies are going to come all by themselves. You got to work on that one. You're going to get them. You're going to get envied. So while we're thinking that these young boys or young men or young leaders are just going on these wonderful retreats and having great food, no, they are getting golden nuggets in their life. And with that being said, Madam President, I want to again let these young men know that while we are on a political side, where they're on that side, we're on this side, when it comes to youth empowerment, youth development, that's when there's a commonality and we all agree. And that's something that they needed to see, Madam President. So I want to publicly thank not only my parliamentary colleagues, I want to thank our Prime Minister, because from day one, when I pitched the idea of putting a program together that targeted the young men who are high flyers, who parents who have it hard to navigate these young men, because I don't know how my mother survived with me. That was a whole nother story. But you have to understand that I firmly believe that only a man could grow up another man. That's just, it is what it is. Just special thanks to Senator Michael Adkidas, who came in one of the sessions and talked to these young men about physical and financial responsibility. You can't spend what you don't have. Watch that money, manage that money, because when you become a man, there's no more mommy's money. All right? I want to thank Barry Griffin. Please, thank you very much for your efforts creating opportunities for these young men. Nothing worse we can do is to give them all this training, not giving them opportunities. I also want to thank Senator Darren Pickstock for being one of our mentors, coming in on his own time to speak to these young men about communication and what it takes to be a man of substance. So, Madam President, and like you just said, if I got $1 every time I wanted to have a female's version, so I'm going to be leaning to Madam President to make sure that she and I work together. We could potentially have a women's next-gen young men mentorship program, because we want to make sure that no one is left behind. And we give these high flyers, whether it's a male or female, the opportunity in a space where they're all the same mindset and a proven track record in leadership, which is very, very important. So, Madam President, I had no idea that this program would have gone where it is at this time, but it is what it is. But I just want to definitely publicly thank the directors of the program, because without them, this would not be where it is today. So Ms. Sharice Roll, if she's in the place, please, let's give her a warm Senate congratulations. You know? Yeah, Sharice is right there. So the closing ceremony for this entry is the 25th of July at the Bahama Convention. Doors open at 6 to 7. I would trust that those who are on the island would be there and show up, because the 25th of July, I will make sure put the flyer out. Your presence there means so much. You would see our partners. You would see where they give an overview of their experience in the program. And I want you to understand that your support will be greatly appreciated. So now, as we get into the business, I'll turn to the budget. Madam President, this year marks a historical milestone for the first time in over 55 years. Our nation is presenting a budget surplus, a projected $75.5 million surplus, representing 0.5% of GDP. This achievement is more than just physical balance. It reflects sound governance, discipline, and steadfast commitment to putting people first. Over this term, the government has reduced VAT from 12 to 10%, cut borrowing, and lowered interest rate payments by 21% to 17% of its revenue. We have introduced a domestic minimum top-up tax to ensure global companies contribute fairly. Revenues have grown from $3.54 billion to $3.9 billion, a 10% increase, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. So this budget demonstrates, Madam President, the government's firm commitment to strengthening infrastructure and essential services that impact the daily lives of all Bahamians. Critical investments have been directed to key agencies to support their goals, reflecting a historic approach to national development. Important repairs and upgrades are underway in the Family Islands, most notably ongoing improvements to road paving in Long Island, revitalizing transportation, which are vital for commerce and community access. Likewise, the restoration of Glass Window Bridge ensures safer and more reliable passage for residents and tourists alike. So this government continues to invest in the maritime infrastructure, the electrical upgrades to Porter's Key Dock, improving operational efficiencies and safety, thereby supporting both commercial and passenger traffic. These upgrades are critical to sustaining the economic lifelines of the island's communities. And on the aviation front, essential repairs and maintenance to the airports across all this country are ongoing. They are enhancing security, safety, and the passenger experiences. So these investments not only support the tourism sector, but also improve connectivity between islands, facilitating greater economic activity and social cohesion. Tourism to date remains the backbone of our economy. So, Madam President, with arrivals exceeding 6 million visitors last year, generating over $4 billion in revenue, and supporting more than 40,000 jobs nationwide, this budget investments are designed to sustain and to grow the tourism industry aggressively, ensuring that the Bahamas remains a top destination in this region. we heard about health care. Health care has not been overlooked. Well-planned investments are aimed at improving facilities and services that are being made to ensure Bahamians have access to quality health care. This includes the maintenance and upgrades to key health centers and hospitals, enabling them to meet the growing demands of the population. Madam President, these targeted investments across transportation, maritime, aviation, tourism, and healthcare infrastructure underscores the government's dedication to building a safer, more resilient, and prosperous Bahamas. So it's a budget that prioritizes that well-being of our citizens and lays a strong foundation for sustainable growth and opportunities. This budget also commits to strengthening the systems that connect our islands and communities, essential for economic growth and social cohesion. Investments in improving our roads, bridges, and public transportation infrastructure demonstrates a clear vision for a safer and more accessible Bahamas. These projects not only create jobs, but also enhance the movement of goods and people, supporting business, tourism, and every life of our families. Madam President, this budget is not just an economic instrument, it's a declaration of intent. It's a bold affirmation that the Bahamian dream is still alive, still possible, and still worthy fighting for. So it says to that farmer, that nurse, that taxi driver in New Providence, to that student all across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we see you, we hear you, and we are working for you. It's a budget written in the ink of responsibility and signed with the resolve of a government that chooses progress over paralysis. That's the headliner. Let's say it again. It's a budget written in the ink of responsibility and signed with the resolve of a government that chooses progress over paralysis. Madam President, we cannot build a resilient nation without bold ideas and strong infrastructure. Whether it's the reform of our transport systems, the modernization of energy grids, the expansion of youth development programs, this budget empowers us to do more than just mend broken. That's all it does, you know. We go past that. It empowers us to build what is better. And let me be clear. A country that invests in its people is a country that believes in its destiny. And a nation that builds in its destiny is unstoppable. Madam President, let us rise above partisan lines and narrow-minded thinking. Let us rise to call history and meet the demands of this moment. For the greatness of our country is not measured by eloquence of its speeches or the wealth of its treasury, but by the dignity of its people and the courage of its leadership. This budget is our chance to lead with foresight, to govern with compassion, and to build with conviction. The time is now, not tomorrow, not someday, but now, to sow the seeds of equity, stability, and hope. So, Madam President, as I began, with gratitude, humility, and with unwavering resolve, let this budget not merely be passed, let it be embraced as a turning point, as a covenant between a government and its people. Let it echo from Inagua to Bimini that the Bahamas is not retreating. The Bahamas is not merely surviving. The Bahamas is rising. We are rising with vision, with purpose, and with the unshakable belief that our best days are not behind us, but ahead. Thank you, Madam President.
Very well. Good job.
Thank you, Senator Ronald Duncan, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Tyrell Young.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Good afternoon, my fellow senators. Madam President, before I get started, I would like to also join Senator Duncan in his speech and his address to the young men and their support in the gallery. Madam President, it so happens that one of the young men's father, who is present with us today, Brian, is my schoolmate. What? Yes. You look so old. Brian have he got the formula for that youthful fountain from his parents who blessed him with those good genes. But welcome to the Senate, guys, and we hope that this also further enhances your resume, shall I say. Ronnie, it's an awesome initiative and a great job that you're doing with the young men and trying to get them on the right path and keep them on the right path. And I always say in life, especially with Bahamians, I feel as though a part of our school curriculum should be exposure. Exposure is so crucial to the forward movement and to the mindset and the culture of our youngsters as they mature and as they grow. And you would be amazed to know and to see where they can go and who they can be once they're exposed at an early age. So it's a good program, Ronnie. Madam President, for the first time since our independence, this administration has delivered a balanced budget with a surplus, affirming that fiscal discipline and visionary governance can and must coexist. Our debt to GDP ratio continues to decline. Our foreign reserves are stable. Our investor confidence is on the rise. And these accomplishments, Madam President, were not stumbled upon. They were earned through sound decisions and the Bahamian spirit of perseverance. Madam President, numbers alone don't tell the full story. This budget is not just about economic indicators. It's about people. This budget is about people. It's about ensuring that prosperity is shared, opportunity is expanded, and no island or community is left behind. Madam President, one thing I took from the Prime Minister from early on into this term, his saying is always, no man left behind. Now we are on to no island, no community left behind. Madam President, in Long Island, our government's commitment to equitable development has taken physical shape. Earlier this month, we witnessed the signing of a $20.8 million contract for the renovation of the Edmond Ski Airport. A project that will include runway reconstruction to meet international standards, and within 60 days, the start of a brand new 10,000 square feet terminal complete with customs and immigration services. Madam President, I listened to the debate in that other place last week, and I listened to when one of the opposite members in that other place stood on his feet and said something in the vein that it's not an international airport. What about immigration and customs? Madam President, I don't know which world that member is living in, but I think international standard means that in order for it to be international, you have to have those services in place. So therefore, that was not warranted. But Long Island is getting a terminal complete with immigration and customs services. For Long Island, this is not just concrete and steel, Madam President. This is connection. This is opportunity. This is dignity for Long Islanders. Additionally, the government has awarded a $20 million contract for road and waterworks improvements throughout Long Island. This long-awaited investment brings tangible change to residents who have endured years of inadequate infrastructure. Roads will be safer, communities will be cleaner, and businesses will thrive in Long Island, Madam President. Madam President, I can tell you personal stories on how this, when I say this budget is about people, I can tell you personal stories about it. For instance, the $20 million contract for waterworks in Long Island, right? My parents lived in South Eleuthera. There's no potable running water in South Eleuthera from Greencastle on to Parliamentary. That whole strip is no running water. If you don't have well, you would do like we do, tote water. My father is 76 years old, and we still toting water in South Eleuthera. But now, the contract has already been signed for South Eleuthera potable water in that area, along with the $20 million contract in Long Island for potable water. So now, when I go to Long Island, I could go down in Miller's in a short period of time, and I could drink the water, because it's potable water, from the city. No longer would we be toting water in Long Island. No longer would we be toting water in Eleuthera. This is what we're talking about when we say this budget is for people. Madam President, we have endured years of inadequate infrastructure, like I said, in Long Island, but that has come to an end.
Long Island would always F&F.
These projects are evidence of this government's will to serve every corner. These projects are evident of this government's will to serve every corner of this archipelago with intention and urgency. Madam President, so, Madam President, we get into that one. We ain't missed that. Madam President, in agriculture, we are no longer content with promises. We are producing results. This budget continues to fund innovative efforts such as the Coconut 360 program, which I am the chairperson, Madam President. If you go now on Harold Road, opposite the Workers' House complex, you will see the first one of these units already out on the road. We're talking about real, tangible things people could touch, see, and feel. We're talking about people in this budget, Madam President. Madam President, the Golden Yoke program, school-based farming, and vertical farms in Family Island, empowering young business bohemians. Madam President, the path to self-sufficiency in this country is on the way. It's here, Madam President. We have been working for the past 5 years, close to 5 years now, ensuring that we reduce the food import levels in the Bahamas. With agriculture expanding by over 21% in 2024 alone, we are seeing the fruits of this government investments. New feed mills, mobile labs, digital platforms for licensing and financing are removing red tape and increasing yields. As the Prime Minister said, food security is a matter of national security. This has become even more telling in the past few days as we can all see what's happening in the Middle East. And here, in this budget, we are backing that declaration with action. Madam President, we cannot build a modern nation without an educated and empowered population. That's why we are seeing a profound shift in how we support students and schools. The National School Breakfast Program, which began in 2023, now provides 20,000 nutritious meals each day, with plans for national expansion. Madam President, attendance is up, engagement is better. Our children are starting each day with a full stomach and a chance to succeed. Through the Find Every Child campaign, we have increased attendance to over 95% in the schools, surpassing expectations. Investments in special education, school digitization, and teaching and teacher support are no longer optional. They are policy priorities of this administration. Our mission is clear: to ensure that every Bahamian child receives not just access to education, but the tools and care they need to thrive. Madam President, a society is judged by how it treats the most vulnerable. This government continues to strengthen its social safety net. Rental assistance and foster care funding have both increased. Grants to organizations supporting the elderly, women, and persons with disability have expanded. Health funding has grown to support diagnostics, transport, and emergency care across our archipelago. We've served nearly 1 million breakfasts to our children, our school children, and we are not done yet. We are also reforming corrections and rehabilitation systems to provide meaningful second chances and pathways to reintegration. This is a social compact. This is a social compact that centers people and principles, not politics. Madam President, I have recently seen a video of a former senior government official in that other honorable chamber selling Long Islanders more dreams than a fake psychic in Las Vegas on a Friday night. Madam President, telling Long Islanders that they would have their airport coming, they will have their airport come hell or high water. Well, hell came, high water came, and here we are, still no airport. But I thank God for this Davis administration for not leaving Long Island behind. No island left behind. Madam President, in our commitment to social upliftment and housing equity, Madam President, I want the Senate, I want the Bahamas, and especially I want Long Islanders to listen to this. Madam President, in our commitment to social upliftment and housing equity, I have personally engaged in discussions with the Honorable Minister Keith Bell, Minister of Housing and Urban Renewal, regarding urgent home repairs needed in Long Island. I am pleased today to stand here and to inform this chamber that Minister Bell has agreed to accompany me to Long Island in the coming weeks to host a town hall meeting with local residents. Madam President, this meeting will provide a platform for open dialogue, allowing the community to express their housing concerns and priorities directly. Madam President, importantly, the minister will be bringing a dedicated team of officers from both Urban Renewal and the Ministry of Housing. Their task force will be conducting comprehensive quantity surveying assessments on site with the goal of launching home repair works without delay. The message to Long Islanders is clear, Madam President. The message is clear. Help is not only on the way. Help is arriving with urgency, planning, and action. Madam President, this is the kind of responsive, people-first governance that transforms lives. Madam President, I would tell you, I have seen on social media a very crucial piece of write-up. It says here, this is one of the opposition's key components in Long Island, and not only in Long Island, but nationally in the Bahamas. It says here, Keith Carroll, well, all my life voting for F&M and hoping my island that I love so much to get the basic things they need to prosper, we was put on the back burner by the FNM. The PLP is giving us the airport and the much-needed road works in the north. They are also helping the Long Islanders Association with the dock at the regatta site that I personally begged the FNM for over 25 years, and nothing happened. All I can say now is PLP all the way. Not my words, but I adopt them. Madam President.
Senator Young, please table it at your earliest.
Yes, definitely I will table it, Madam President. This budget boldly centers Family Island development, whether it's the airport and the waterworks in Long Island, the road works in Maguana, or the dock upgrades in Eleuthera and Crooked Island. The message is clear. Every island matters. Our goal is to decentralize prosperity, to ensure that a child born in Clarencetown has the same opportunities as one born in Nassau, that a farmer in North Andros can scale up just like a business person in New Providence. Madam President, that every Bahamian, regardless of geography, feels seen, heard, and supported. The 2025-2026 budget is living testament to what's possible when leadership meets resolve. My fellow Senator Ronnie Duncan just said it the same. When leadership meets resolve and policy meets purpose. We are seeing investments, not just in roads and terminals, but in hope. Not just in statistics, but in stories of children thriving in schools, of farmers expanding their yields in Andros, of families finding relief, and of islands like Long Island preparing for literal and figurative takeoff. Let it be said that in this time, we chose courage over complacency, that we acted not just for today, but for tomorrow, that we build a better Bahamas, not just in speeches, but in schools, in clinics, in farms, in homes, and in runways. Madam President, I commend this budget to the Senate and the people we serve. Let us stay the course. Thank you, Madam President. All the way.
Thank you, Senator Honorable Tyrell Young, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Dr. Eresia Hepburn Forbes.
I got her ball too. I know. Hey. Madam President, I'd like to take this time to congratulate all of the recent graduates through our country, particularly the graduates of the University of the Bahamas. I'd also like to take this time to publicly wish my father, Eric Lamont Hepburn, the best father in the universe, my beacon of light and my strongest advocate, and to all the other fathers and father figures, a happy belated Father's Day. Madam President, I would also like to welcome the next generation young men headed by Senator Ronnie and thank them for taking time out of their busy schedules to come and listen to all of us, even those on the other side. Madam President, I thank God for the opportunity to serve, and I would like to take this opportunity to extend my continual gratitude to the Honorable Prime Minister, the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, for permitting me to contribute at this national level. I would also like to thank my loving husband, who is my honorary senator, as he must listen to my views, whether he likes it or not, on every national topic. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not publicly thank my parents, Eric Jr. and Susan Hepburn, who have always been the best role models and the supporters a child could ask for. I know all three are watching and will provide constructive criticism, whether asked or not, on my debate. Madam President, I would also like to thank two of my aunts, Yulie and Margaret, and the rest of my family and friends. I am grateful for your continued support as I debate in this chamber. Let me also agree with you in congratulating the newly elected PLP Women's Branch, and I look forward to working alongside them. Madam President, I would also like to congratulate Ms. Angelique McKay, Queen Mother and CEO of Jungle New Commandos, whom I am a member of that organization, as she hails from our cradle of culture island, Cat Island, and ensure creators thrive in our society, under the leadership of Senator Michael Halkitis. Madam President, I rise in this place with gratefulness in my heart, hope in my soul, and pride in my stride. Madam President, today is indeed a new day, where we are continuing to do the work of the people, placing our people first, island by island, and opportunity by opportunity. Madam President, as an educator and a researcher, I don't like to assume things I can quantify. So when my fellow senator stated if he could ask persons if they were better off now than they were 4 years ago, he thinks the majority would say yes. I can let him know, based on my survey, that the majority of Bahamians agreed with him overwhelmingly. So, Madam President, today, I stand before you filled with pride, hope, and an unwavering belief in the strength of our people. From the shores of Abaco to the hills of Cat Island, from the vibrant streets of Nassau to the communities of Ragged Island and Inagua, this is our Bahamas, and this is our budget. Madam President, in this budget, the government has outlined several key initiatives benefiting all of our citizens as we are expanding opportunities island by island. Please allow me to focus on just a few. Madam President, in the area of agriculture, the government's focus on food security, climate-smart agriculture, and the creation of a secure, prosperous, and fair society advocates agricultural development, which is crucial for economic development and food security. In the area of education, the budget reflects the government's commitment to enhancing the well-being of Bahamians and creating opportunities. The budget is designed to build resilience and pave the way towards a brighter tomorrow. It continues to build on proven results-driven policies while establishing key new initiatives that will better the lives of all of Bahamians. In the area of the environment, the budget focuses on implementing measures to reduce climate-related risks and vulnerability to external shocks through initiatives such as coastal protection, disaster risk management, and principal deferment schemes activated during the time of crisis. In the area of social services, the budget also emphasizes social services as one of the pillars of a secure, prosperous, and fair society. The government is committed to changing the status quo and improving the lives of Bahamians with the expansion and creation of several innovative initiatives. Madam President, we realize that this is the people's money, and the people know that this administration is expanding more and more opportunities for them, island by island. Madam President, I must wholeheartedly agree with my parliamentary colleagues in this and the other place that this budget presents a more comprehensive picture of the government's vision for the country. The budget puts our money where our mouth is, with it being focused and determined on benefits for everyone. Madam President, we are setting out a new course for advancing each citizen and the country as a whole. There are still external shocks that have the ability to affect our country, as we can see, with expanding global conflicts. But we are working on economic resilience within this budget. This budget is not just a financial milestone. It is a symbol of what we can accomplish when we come together with purpose, discipline, and vision. Madam President, the opposition consistently comes into this chamber with their verbal gymnastics. It is clear that the persons on the other side are living in an alternate reality. They make claims that there's no benefit for the people when this administration has the most industrial agreements signed for persons and benefits, has the lowest rate of unemployment for more than a decade, an increase in minimum wage from the last time that was increased under this administration, an increase in the education and social services budget. So the reality is that this budget is for us and not for the few. This budget is for each and every one of you. Madam President, through education, the empowered minds of lift communities and shape the architects of tomorrow. Madam President, as a proud educator, I am happy that I have the opportunity to showcase students' work and research. And I am proud to publicly congratulate some of my students whose research has been accepted to present at the 35th West Indies Conference. It is my hope that we are able to garner enough sponsorship so that they are able to present at this international conference. I thank Vaughan L. and Associates, the Central Bank, and the Tourism Development Corporation for pledging to assist. We are still in urgent need for sponsorships, so I welcome new donors. Madam President, the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training has made significant strides in transforming the educational landscape. With over $250 million allocated to modernizing classrooms, train teachers, and expand access to family islands, the government is ensuring that every child has the tools to succeed. The digital learning initiatives and investment in mental health services for students are key pillars in this transformation. Madam President, we all understand education is important because it's the foundation upon which individuals and societies build their futures. It does far more than transfer knowledge. It cultivates the ability to think critically, solve problems creatively, and understand the world from multiple perspectives. For individuals, education opens doors to better opportunities, helps break cycles of poverty, and foster independence and personal growth. It empowers people to make informed decisions, advocate for themselves, and contribute meaningfully to their communities. On a broader scale, education promotes social equity, economic development, and civil engagement. Madam President, this administration proudly has touted many firsts, and the development of the National School Breakfast Program is another one of them. This program was launched in October 2023 as a pilot initiative in 4 primary schools in New Providence. What began as a modest start has rapidly transformed, driven by strategic purpose and unwavering commitment into national investment in health, equity, and education. Madam President, this government not only envisioned progress, but funded it. The program's budget rose from $1 million in 2023 to $5.7 million in 2024, reinforcing our commitment to nourishing the nation's youth. As of February 13, 2025, over 500,000 breakfasts have been served, and by the end of the current school year, which just happened, we are surpassing 933,000. This initiative stands as a bold testament in our belief that no child should begin their school day hungry. Madam President, this initiative not only benefits, but it also engaged more than 100 breakfast vendors, many of which are small, locally owned businesses. The vendors serve a role far beyond meal preparation. They are integral members of school communities, providing not just nourishment, but also a sense of care, consistency, and dignity to students they serve. However, it is my hope that this program expands as we engage in domestic farmers to provide some of the produce to the vendors, making it a full circle initiative. Madam President, I must wholeheartedly agree with my parliamentary colleagues in this and the other place that this budget presents a more comprehensive budget of the government's vision for the country. This budget, again, as I said before, puts our money where our mouth is. With this budget, we are focused and determined to ensure that each citizen can benefit from bouncing back from external shocks and working towards economic resilience. Sorry. I messed up it, yeah. As we set out, Madam President, in the recent months, we have all felt the sting of food costs. So this administration lowered the VAT on food even more. A responsive government. The opposition would have you believe that Bahamians lived off of 17 items that were on the bread basket list. But the math, like their verbal gymnastics, shows that they labor under delusions. Madam President, this 2025-2026 budget emphasizes the critical role of agriculture and marine resources in national development. It highlights the government's commitment to food security, economic diversification, and community empowerment through strategic investments in farming, fisheries, and agribusiness. In this budget, we are also securing our food supply by supporting local farmers in investing in modern agriculture. We are embracing technology as there will be new hydroponic farms developed, more training in agricultural strategies, and an overall effort to reducing our reliance on imports. Madam President, there is one thing that Senator Barnett said that was accurate, is that we need a tourism sector that benefits all and development, under its development. And with the development of agri-tourism models, which merge our weakest performing sector with our strongest through the Tourism Development Corporation, we do just that. Madam President, I would like to thank the Prime Minister again for being the voice of the voiceless in the climate change debate. Climate change is real, and we are investing $100 million in coastal protection, renewable energy, and disaster preparedness. Madam President, the science is unequivocal. Our islands are on the front line of a planetary crisis we did not cause. Rising seas are nibbling at our coasts. More intense hurricanes are stretching our resources. Salt intrusion affects our agriculture. Coral bleaching threatens our fisheries, and the very livability of our islands is at stake. Climate change is no longer a distant warning. It is here, it is now, and it is costly. The budget reflects a bold pivot toward resilience. $150 million has been allocated to climate mitigation and adaptation initiatives, which is the largest single-year investment in our nation's history. Our mitigation strategy centers on reducing emissions and creating green jobs. We are expanding solar microgrids across the Family Islands, investing in electronic vehicle infrastructure, and introducing new incentives for residential energy efficiency. These initiatives do more than cut carbon. They cut costs for Bahamian families and businesses. But mitigation alone is not enough. We must also adapt, and adapt swiftly. This budget funds the expansion of seawalls and mangrove restoration to shield our coasts, improve drainage systems in flood-prone communities, and supports climate-smart agriculture to protect our food security. Climate finance is also a cornerstone. We are unlocking new streams through blended financial partnerships and the Caribbean Climate Risk Insurance Facility. Our climate resilience budget framework is designed not just to survive the future, but to shape it. Madam President, adaptation is not surrender. It is sovereignty in action. It is a bold decision to preserve our homes, protect our people, and pass to future generations a country that is not just surviving, but thriving. Let us rise to meet this moment with courage it demands. The Bahamas has the talent, the will, the ingenuity to be the model of climate resilience for the world. And with this budget, we take another step towards securing that future. Madam President, every opportunity that I have, I will speak about disability awareness. It only takes one accident, an illness, and we too may be a person with a disability. While our administration brought the Disability Act into force in 2014, there is so much more that needs to be done to ensure inclusion of our citizens with disabilities. I am thankful that we have now someone signing for the hearing impaired, but oh, how I cannot wait for the new Parliament building, where my brothers and sisters will have the opportunity to access both the Senate and the House of Assembly. Madam President, I am thankful to our Minister of Social Services for the increase in the budget for this department in the amount of over $5 million. This is important as it will continue to advance several of the beneficial initiatives for persons with disabilities. There's been a push for an increase with persons with disabilities to participate in programs to assist with entrepreneurial development and employment. And several of them have graduated from the entrepreneurial training program where they will be able to start their own businesses, another first for our country. And others are being engaged in several places of their employment in both the public and private sector through programs through our government. Madam President, there's also been a much-needed outcry from adults with disability for transportation. And the minister said in that other place that there will be a new bus which they will be able to utilize free of charge coming very shortly. This is progress. Madam President, we do not just talk about making sure we have access, but we are ensuring that we listen and put policies and procedures in place to benefit persons with disabilities. Madam President, the senator for the other side indicated that there was not a full use of social services funds. And if the senator had just listened to the minister in that other place, he indicated that there was a reassessment of persons who were still receiving assistance from COVID, and that the accounts for the savings at this point. And those funds are going to be reallocated to other areas where there's a need. But again, like their verbal gymnastics and their math, listening is a hard thing for the other side to do. So, Madam President, while some on the other side just talk and perform like they work for Cirque du Soleil, meet Shakespeare combined, the people know that this administration is working for them, not acting for them. Madam President, this budget does not solve all of the issues, but it does expand opportunities for our people. Madam President, I asked a variety of persons in the same survey that I spoke about earlier, what does this budget mean to them? And the responses varied, I have to be honest, to I'm not sure, I didn't listen to the budget, but there were lots of great responses as well. To this is a budget for me. This budget is one for the future. This is our moment, a moment to believe in ourselves, a moment to build a future that is brighter, fairer, and more united than ever before. Another, to me, the national budget is more than numbers on a page. It's a story a country tells about its values, its priorities, and its plans for the future. I see it's a kind of mirror. It reflects where a nation is investing its hope, its caution, and its ambition. For the Bahamas in 2025, this budget speaks volumes. It signals a country that refuses to be passive in the face of rising tides and changing winds, literally. With record investment in climate resilience, digital innovation, and inclusive tourism, it shows a government charting a course not just for survival, but for transformation. I know that another senator did a survey but could not quote anything because the results were probably too positive. Madam President, the road ahead will not always be easy, but with faith, courage, and with unity, there's nothing we cannot achieve. Madam President, I know the Bahamian people will give this progressive administration another chance because they can see that their future is bright with us. The future is the Bahamian, and the future is all about you. So, Madam President, as usual, I thank you and my Senate colleagues, and may God bless us and God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Yes, well said. Well said.
Thank you, Senator the Honorable Dr. Eureka Hepburn Forbes, for your contribution. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable J.Ann Major.
Madam President, I rise today with profound humility and great purpose, deeply grateful for the trust and confidence placed in me by the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, and the Progressive Liberal Party. Madam President, I also wish to acknowledge the support of my loved ones over the last 7 or so months of this new journey as I've sat in this role as Senator in this great Commonwealth. Their sacrifices, love, and encouragement means more to me than I can put into words, and I cannot say thank you enough. Madam President, today marks not only my first budget communication as a senator, but the continuation of my service to country as a legal practitioner, a maritime regulator, and now as a voice within this honorable chamber. This budget, Madam President, is about more than just numbers. It is a declaration of priorities and values, and it reflects this administration's belief in the determination and ingenuity of the Bahamian people, and our belief that the Bahamian people are at the heart of our national strategy. It is a budget that puts Bahamian people first by acknowledging our pain points, meeting them with action, from lower electricity bills and food costs to stronger schools, better clinics, more opportunities, and more jobs. The philosopher Plato once said, "The measure of a man is what he does with his power." Today, we measure our power not by control, but by our capacity to uplift. I believe that this budget, Madam President, is a testament to that principle. Over the past few weeks, we've witnessed the opposition wield their platform not with responsibility, but what I would deem recklessness, choosing distortion and smokescreens over dialogue and fear over facts. In moments like these, we are reminded that leadership is not about theatrics. It is about truth and action. We in this chamber owe the Bahamian people more than sound bites and slogans. We owe them integrity. And if we are to measure ourselves by what we do with power, let it be said that this side of the aisle, with the exception, of course, is Senator Barry and Dr. Aricio, we choose to use it in service of the Bahamian people with honesty, clarity, and purpose. Madam President, for the first time in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we've heard that this government is presenting a budget with a surplus, with a projected surplus. That, of course, is no small feat. It is a testament to fiscal responsibility without social regression, while reducing some of the tax burden on the Bahamian people. We have proven that you can be both disciplined and compassionate, investing in people while also managing the books. The members opposite have questioned whether this is real, whether this surplus is sustainable, or it's just a temporary reprieve. Madam President, I say that's a fair question, one that speaks to what I hope is our shared desire for lasting stability, and not just merely criticizing for criticizing's sake. Let me be clear. Our estimated $75 million surplus is not an accident. It is the result of the 12.2% revenue growth that is driven by strategic investments in tourism and our financial services sectors, attracting billions in foreign direct investments alone this year. It is also driven by our expanded tax compliance, recovering millions of dollars previously lost to loopholes or decades of poor tax collection. With real property tax, for example, over the years we've seen numerous successive administrations implement amnesty programs to encourage those persons who were in arrears to bring their taxes current. And time again, we've seen that those programs did not yield the satisfactory results. But this administration has found a strategy that works. Simply put, we enforce the law, and we utilize the mechanisms that have existed in the legislation for decades. As a result of these strategic efforts, the collection of outstanding tax arrears on commercial properties and foreign-owned properties grew by $27.3 million. Most of that was collected from non-Bahamians. This isn't a surplus, Madam President, created by cutting services or raising broad taxes on the backs of Bahamians. It's the result of smart fiscal management and targeted reforms. It allows us to invest more in schools, clinics, roads, energy relief, and job training, the very things that make daily life better for working families. When Moody's and Fitch upgrade our credit ratings, they aren't applauding luck. They are recognizing good governance. This is the fruit of discipline and hard work, and this administration will nurture that. Madam President, I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to acknowledge the diligent work and efforts of our Prime Minister, as the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Economic Affairs, our very own Senator Michael Halkitis, for rescuing this economy from the brink of financial ruin. Minister Halkitis has been instrumental in us not only achieving our first national budget surplus, bringing down the debt to GDP from nearly 100% to 72.9%, slashing our deficit to the lowest it's been in 15 years, and driving initiatives that have led to credit rating upgrades, multiple blacklist removals, and restoration of investor confidence in the Bahamas. This is the kind of leadership that strengthens our economy and our credibility on the global stage. This, Madam President, is the kind of leadership that this country needs. While we acknowledge that we may not be fully out of the woods yet, we certainly can see the sunlight. And that's not politics, Madam President, that's results. That's progress. This is how we honor Proverbs 13 and 11. Wealth gained little by little increases. This timeless wisdom reminds us that meaningful growth doesn't happen overnight, and that shortcuts, quick fixes, or reckless spending are not the answer. We will not gamble with our children's future for political applause in the present. Instead, this administration remains focused on building an economy that is sustainable, equitable, and resilient. We are committed to steady, deliberate progress, brick by brick, policy by policy, that the foundation we lay today will support generations to come. This is why we're diversifying our economy, attracting strategic investments, investing in housing and infrastructure, and reducing the tax burden on working families, all while keeping our fiscal house in order. Madam President, I wish to turn now to a topic that the opposition has been busy spinning in the headlines and social media over the last several weeks or months, the topic of VAT. For the record, Madam President, under the Minnis administration, VAT was increased from 7.5% to 12% across the board. Yes, they offered a zero-rated VAT list on only 22 bread basket items. But let's count them. Baby cereal, baby food, baby formula, bread, broths and soups, that's one, butter, canned fish, cheese, condensed milk, cooking oil, corned beef, evaporated milk, flour, fresh milk, grits, margarine, mayonnaise, mustard, powdered detergent, rice, soap, and tomato paste. I guess you can't eat detergent, right? So that's not food, right? No eggs, no unprepared meats, no fruits or vegetables, no milk alternatives for those of us who may be lactose intolerant. It was the former Prime Minister, Hubert Minnis, who said in his 2016 interview with the Nassau Guardian, and I quote, "I don't believe in increasing taxes. I believe in decreasing taxes and increasing opportunities. Increasing taxes is the lazy way out. When you don't want to think, you just tax. Yet, by the time he made his first budget communication in 2018 after taking office, what did he do? He increased VAT to 12%. And in my view, dangle those 22 bread basket items to the Bahamian people as if this was some sort of consolation prize. As much as the opposition likes to tout VAT as a PLP problem, if they truly had a problem with VAT, they would have removed it or at minimum kept it where it was. Instead, the Minister administration, which by way of reminder includes the current leader of the opposition, the current deputy leader of the opposition, the MP for East Grand Bahama, and 2 of our opposition senators, one of whom is still with us today. These sitting members of the opposition were not part of that rebel 4 who were bold enough to vote no to the VAT increase. They also were not part of that group that decided to conveniently be absent for the vote that day. They were part of the group that voted yes. Yes to 12%. Yes to telling the Bahamian people, be grateful for those handful of bread basket items that were zero rated and VAT free. This administration took issue with that VAT increase from day one. And from we took office, we immediately reduced that rate from 12% to 10%. We didn't change our stance on this. We stood on business.
Anyway, first thing you do.
And we brought VAT down to what was necessary but still workable at that time.
And government revenues went up.
We didn't just talk about easing the burden on Bahamian families. We took action as soon as we had the opportunity to do so. Since then, this administration has implemented a further reduction from 10% to 5% on unprepared foods, which, as we all are aware, took effect on April 1st. This means that the savings didn't stop at that limited list of 22. They extend to everything from fruits and vegetables to pasta and eggs to lactose-free milk. That's what progress looks like. That's what putting people first looks like. That's what caring about what Bahamians actually put into their bodies looks like. Now, under this budget, we're going a step further. Effective September 1st, VAT will be reduced to 5% on critical necessities, including baby diapers, feminine hygiene products, medication, medical supplies, and other essential goods. So let's be clear. Let's be clear. I hear the member opposite talking about it's still not zero, so let's be clear. 5% on a broad range of essential items and unprepared foods and 10% on all other goods is a far better deal for Bahamians than zero rated on a narrow list of 22 and 12% on everything else.
Yeah, repeat that. I missed that.
5% on a broad range of essential goods and unprepared foods, and 10% on all other goods is a far better deal than zero rated VAT on a limited list of 22 and 12% on everything else. And if you are still not convinced, let's do some basic math here. I invite you all to pull out your calculators to check me. If we consider an average weekly grocery spend of $100, we have $60 on unprepared food and $40 on other taxable items, right? Under the Minister administration, you can use whatever numbers you like. Under the Minister administration, we had VAT at 12% across the board. So if we now apply that $60 of unprepared food at 12%, that gives us what, $7.20, right? And then we have VAT on $40 worth of other items. That's what, $4.80. The total VAT on $100 worth of items would have been about $12. The total bill under the Minister administration would have been $112. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, even if some of those items fell in the list of the 22, the vast majority of the grocery items bought that week would still attract 12% VAT. Now let's look at what we're doing under this administration. The VAT on unprepared foods is at 5%. VAT on all other taxable items is at 10%. So the VAT on that $60 worth of unprepared foods, $3. The VAT on the $40 of other taxable items, $4. The total VAT, assuming all things equal in terms of the price of grocery and what have you, the total VAT spent would be $7, leading to a total grocery bill of 107. Last I checked, 107 is less than 112, right? Okay. Savings comparison. Savings comparison. I said assuming all things equal. I said assuming all things equal. So the savings, again, let me say that in case the members opposite did not hear me.
Senators.
I'm going to say it again.
Order.
No,
Order.
I like when they get excited.
Order.
Not just to get them.
Order. Order.
I know that VAT.
Senator Major. Senator Major, 1 second. Order. 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 Senator Roll, order. Senator Major, please proceed. Please proceed. I'm just trying to get him quiet for you.
I'm going to repeat this for the members opposite who did not hear me. When I said assuming all other things equal, because the last I checked, the government did not set the prices in super value food store. That's why we said an assumption. The savings to the consumer when compared to the prior administration would be $5 per every $100 worth of grocery. That's a 42% reduction in the VAT paid on the same basket of goods. To the opposition, I say this: if you are going to criticize, at least bring the context and not give the misleading misrepresentations, which suggests that the majority of food items were not subject to VAT under your administration. Let's not pretend that the prior VAT regime on groceries was so beneficial to the vast majority of Bahamian people, because it was not.
Absolutely not.
We all have calculators. The math just wasn't mathing. Madam President, moving on from VAT. Even with the reduction in VAT, the pain of our people is not lost on us. This administration understands that the high cost of living remains a burden. This is why this budget goes beyond VAT. For example, we are investing in both immediate relief and long-term energy reform. There will be duty exemptions on certified energy-efficient household appliances that are confirmed to have a positive impact on our climate change initiative. We are also removing the duty on butane gas for domestic and emergency use. This directly benefits many of our Family Island households who rely on this fuel for portable stoves. Another example of this administration's commitment to building resilience and affordability into everyday life for everyday Bahamians. There will also be ongoing investments to modernize the national electricity grid and transition to more sustainable energy sources across all of our islands. Madam President, the diligent work of the Ministry of Energy and Transport has resulted in lower light bills for thousands of homes. Of course, the opposition, the last time we were here, chose to ignore or downplay that fact and instead hung its hat on the fact that it didn't happen early enough during our administration. But the fact is, it is happening. Energy reform is happening. Solar energy is happening. By 2026, solar microgrids will power several Family Islands, cutting costs by at least 50%. These reforms are not just cosmetic, they are structural. They position us for lower costs and more reliability moving forward. Who can really be mad at that? Madam President, if there's one unifying thread that we've heard throughout this budget today and over the last several weeks, it is this: we are expanding opportunities not just for the capital, but across every island. For years, our Family Island communities have felt that governments have only been Nassau-focused rather than Bahamas-focused. This administration has heard those cries loud and clear, and that is why we're making transformative investments in infrastructure across the Family Islands. These investments include roadworks, commencing much-needed roadworks on Long Island Cat Island, Eleuthera, and Exuma, with investments totaling $250 million. On San Salvador, a major road rehabilitation program is already underway, signaling a new phase of development for the island's infrastructure. For Long Island, we have seen the recently signed $22 million contract to rehabilitate and upgrade key roadworks across that island. Yes, this administration is looking out for Long Islanders, contrary to the narrative that the PLP doesn't care about Long Island. Madam President, Senator Young would have spoken about the water improvements. Through water and sewage, we're seeing major advancements in major water system upgrades across Exuma, South Andros, and North Acklands. These initiatives are helping to reduce water losses and ensure that Bahamians across the archipelago have reliable and sustainable access to clean water. Again, I ask, who can be mad at that? Madam President, we are also investing in dock upgrades in Harbor Island and San Salvador, enhancing access, safety, and rehabilitation for those key transportation hubs. Madam President, this budget also allocates millions towards the continued expansion of airport facilities across the Family Islands, specifically in North Eleuthera, Grand Bahama, and once again, Long Island. Cat Island's airport is now 80% complete. The Phase 1 terminal at the Maguana Airport is also slated to be completed by June of 2026. We see in Exuma, the works at the airport terminal are actively underway, and once completed will boost convenience to not only the people of Exuma, but the entire South and Central Bahamas, seeing that Exuma is a critical aviation hub for those islands. Once again, this is progress you can see. With the recent signing of the contract for the Long Island Airport runway, we can say, thankfully, it is a new day for the people of Long Island. Just the other day in that other place, the MP for Long Island said a promise is a comfort to a fool. But in the same contribution, he acknowledged that no contracts were signed under the previous administration. This is despite the former Minister of Tourism and Aviation saying to the people of Long Island that your airport is going to get built come hell or high water. To make such a bold statement, knowing that no contracts were in place at that time, is the definition of empty promises. Today, under this administration, Long Island Airport development is not just a political soundbite. It is a commitment coming to life. Plans in motion, and yes, contracts in place. We are the government that is delivering not just rhetoric, but runways across the archipelago. This is what progress looks like. Madam President, the budget also provides for clinical and hospital upgrades throughout our Family Islands. Rumkey's Clinic will be open by December, ending 40 years of reliance on mainland doctors. Across various Family Islands, labs are going up and we are procuring new diagnostic equipment so that residents no longer have to travel all the way to New Providence for basic tests. Basic health care is coming closer to home. This, again, is progress you can feel. Madam President, I listened to the member opposite earlier today speaking on the state of health care in Grand Bahama. And I mean, perhaps they can remind me if I'm incorrect, but I believe under the previous administration, the FNM held 5 seats in Grand Bahama. I believe it was Dr. Darvel, the Minister of Health, who said there were so many ministers in Grand Bahama, they was bumping into each other. So my question is, what was the state of health care in Grand Bahama then?
They were tense.
Are we really expecting the people of Grand Bahama to take a chance, on the FNM once again? That's what I call laughable. That's what I call laughable. Madam President, when we now look at education, the great equalizer, the numbers speak for themselves. Graduation rates, boy, I touching some nerves, because they was quiet all day. No,
Thank you. Please
my
proceed.
colleague's good.
Please proceed, Senator Major.
Madam President, when we look at education, the great equalizer, the numbers speak for themselves. Graduation rates are up from 72% to 85% since 2021. As we've heard, this administration was the first to introduce the free breakfast in our schools, and to date, we have served close to 1 million free hot breakfasts to our school children. Madam President, hungry minds cannot learn. And this new budget expands the funding for the breakfast program, ensuring that it will soon reach every Bahamian child in our government primary schools. We also have the Creative and Performing Arts School, CAPAS, which will open next year, nurturing the next generation of, you guessed it, Bahamian creatives. Yes. You see, contrary to the naysayers opposite, we do care about our artists and our innovators. And to prove it, we are investing in them. Yes. This is what People First looks like in action. In San Salvador, the high school is now fully funded, ensuring that no child must leave their island home just to get an education. Madam President, I move now to health care. This budget allocates certain investments for health care. Health is not a privilege, it is a right. And this administration is funding that right, with over 11 million committed to upgrading clinics nationwide, new healthcare facilities throughout our family islands, $6 million in equity contribution toward a new public hospital for New Providence, the completion of phase 1 of the Freeport Hospital, the expansion of NHI services, giving more Bahamians access to affordable quality care. This government is modernizing our healthcare system so that Bahamians, regardless of their geography or their income, will never be left behind. Over the last several months, we have seen what progress in healthcare looks like. We have reopened the Blue Hill Road Community Clinic, which was closed for more than 4 years. We've transformed the Anstown Community Clinic into a fully modernized 7,200 square foot health hub with an on-site pharmacy, laboratory, dental, and diagnostic services. Works are underway for the Coconut Grove Advanced Health Center, servicing a community, the great community of St. Barnabas, that has been without a clinic since Hurricane Matthew in 2016. This is what progress looks like. This is what equity, dignity, and delivering on a clear vision for a stronger, healthier Bahamas looks like. Madam President, this budget, this national momentum, is the result of leadership and collaboration. Our Prime Minister has surrounded himself with a committed, competent, and focused team of cabinet ministers who are delivering on the PLP's blueprint for change day in and day out. I recognize the hard work of our Minister of Economic Affairs, but I also want to take this moment to recognize the hard work of our Attorney General, who has led critical legislative and regulatory reforms that have enhanced transparency and good governance and our international reputation. Madam President, listen, I got this. Madam President, I also want to commend my Senate colleagues for being more than just legislators, but catalysts for national advancement, driving impactful change not just in the law, but in vital sectors like trade, agriculture, and beyond. And of course, Mr. Consumer Protection himself. Madam President, for too long, budgets have been measured only by what we cut. This one should be measured by what it builds, by the lives it touches, the opportunities it expands, and the dignity it restores island by island. The philosopher Seneca taught us, as is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is. This budget will be a good tale for this administration. One where a single mother in Auckland sees her light bill drop. Wow. Where the fisherman in Bimini gets a fair price for his catch. Where the grandmother in Inagua doesn't have to travel all the way to Nassau just to see a doctor for routine blood work. where the dialysis patient can now receive a kidney transplant right here at home, and where the young artist in Grand Bahama can earn her first paycheck at campus. Madam President, as I bring my contribution to a close, I'm reminded just how far we have come in the last 4 years. We inherited a country weighed down by fiscal mismanagement, a stagnant economy, low morale, and people who had lost trust in the possibility of better days. But today, under this Davis-Cooper-led administration, we are standing on firmer ground with real economic growth and a renewed hope for the future. While progress is undeniable, we know that there's still more to be done so that more Bahamians can feel tangible relief in their daily lives. That is why consistency matters. That is why discipline in our policy direction is critical. That is why we must remain focused and intentional, because the moment we turn back, the moment we let up, is the moment we risk undoing all that we've worked for and setting the country back. It's a risk that the Bahamian people are not willing to take. The Bahamas is not just sailing, Madam President, under this administration. We are charting a new course, and we will continue to steer it on the right path with wisdom and justice above all, love for our people. We are no longer walking in uncertainty. We are marching with direction, with discipline, and with a new resolve. We're writing a new chapter in Bahamian history, one defined not by crisis, but by capacity, not by chaos, but by competence. May God continue to bless the Prime Minister of this great Commonwealth and this bold, visionary administration as we embark on our second term of progress, purpose, and possibility. This is the time to dig deeper, to push harder, and to stay the course. We cannot and we will not go back. The F&M could keep their torch. We've been burned before. We ain't going back into that fire. The Bahamian people deserve better. And under this administration, we're starting to see what better looks like. Madam President, as the sun sets on this debate today, let it rise on a Bahamas where no one is left behind in the shadows. Let us be remembered, not for the battles we fought in this honorable chamber, but for the bridges we built beyond it. I stand in full support of this budget, in full support of Prime Minister Brad Davis, and in full support of this administration. With faith in God and love for our people, we'll sail onward, not by the wind of chance, but by the compass of justice and opportunity for all. May God forever bless the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Honorable J.Ann Major, for your contribution. As many?
Madam President,
The chair recognizes Senator Honorable Tyrell Young.
thank you, Madam President. Madam President, just briefly, as requested, and I'd like to say also, great speech, Senator Major. I like it. No, we have been burned by that torch before. The Bahamian people have been burned. So, Madam President, as requested, I have here to table the article that I mentioned in my speech earlier today, which states by Keith Carroll, well, all my life voting for F&M and hoping my island that I love so much to get the basic things they need.
Senators.
To get the basic things they need to prosper. Yes, sir. Okay.
He's reading what he previously said that he was tabled into the record. Can you
So
please,
I'm tabling.
Senator Young,
So, yeah,
Senator Young, can you start again so we can make sure that you're...
sure, with no hesitation, Madam President. Keith Carroll, by Keith Carroll. This is by Keith Carroll.
I can't hear him, senators. Senators,
By Keith Carroll.
can you
Well,
please go ahead?
all
Please
my
proceed,
life
Senator.
voting for the F&M.
You want me to let him start again?
Hoping my island that I have loved so much to get the basic things they need to prosper. We was put on the back burner by the F&M. The PLP is giving us the airport and the much-needed roadworks in the north. They are also helping the Long Islanders Association with the dock at the regatta site that I personally begged the F&M for over 25 years, and nothing happened. All I can say now is PLP all the way. Madam President, I here table this document.
Can you please
I
bring
already signed it and dated.
dated? Thank you. Order document be brought up. Order the document do lie on the table. Thank you. As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Halkitis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate. We have till 3 p.m. tomorrow when it is the intention that Senator Darren Pickstock will take the floor at 3 p.m. tomorrow. So, Madam President, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until 3 p.m. Tuesday, June 24th, 2025.
Is there a seconder? Second. It has been moved and seconded. Senators, I'm putting the question. Senators, they need to be able to hear me, Senator Henfield. Senators, it has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate is hereby suspended until 3 p.m. on the 24th of June, 2025. As many as in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the Senate stands suspended until 3 p.m. the 24th of June, 2025.